That is to say, Reloaded and I actually discussed that. So here's the thing. Since we have finite time and finite resources, I have read your whole thing, and I'm probably not going to respond to all 20 points that you made. But the general idea we're having going forward is we're going to be kind of acknowledging as much as we can. But if someone drops like a 17 paragraph thing on our faces like that, we're probably not going to sit down and read the whole thing live on camera. Makes sense? Mm-hmm. My guys can hear you.
Yeah, but my guys can't hear me.
Your guys aren't even there.
My guys can hear me now. Yeah, so, by the way, what's going on, guys? Welcome to Lore Reloaded. What we're going to be doing is, the way it works is going to be this way. We're going to try to read all of the comments that we can. If they're good or we want to comment on them live or on the next one, we may do that. And if it's good, we'll integrate it. But we leave the opportunity, or we leave deciding whether it goes into the canon we're doing to our own, so we get to decide what's canon and what's not. And any kind of contributions, whether it's through super chats or through bits or whatever, will at least get the idea discussed, but it may not be entered into the canon. Now, we'll try to get ideas and read your guys' comments. It's just there's going to be too many to get everybody's. That's just unreasonable, unfortunately. So
to throw a personal perspective on that, back way back in the 9 years ago, actually, I started doing Q&A videos, and people loved those, and people loved asking questions. And it got to the point where, quite literally, I spent an entire week where 100% of my spare time was spent answering the Q&A videos, because it just got such a huge volume.
Right.
And that's the kind of thing that would probably happen here, especially given the fact that, this is Star Trek. And I have a weird feeling that when you bring up rewriting Star Trek, a few people might have an opinion on that.
Right. Just a few.
Yeah, just a couple,
One or two. I do want to say really quick to you, Federation Builder, specifically. I'm not liking your Voyager ideas. I just want to be honest about that. But that's because I kind of want to do some other things with the temporal Cold War, which would interfere with your ideas for that. So that's the first thing I wanted to mention. I love the plaque idea, and I'm going to bring that up for these two to talk about. I'm not sure what I think of the companion thing. I think that should be more case by case rather than a static thing. And I just wanted to comment on those three really quick here. Are you not live anymore? I keep hearing weird comments in your chat.
Yeah,
No,
your
I'm
video
live.
is just your channel is just a black screen. I can hear us, but it's just a black screen.
We've discussed this. So my Zoom isn't working. It's not capturing it. So they're looking at a black screen. So.
Very strange. I don't know why it would be so. Anyways, whatever.
Well, we could completely focus on that and not, discuss it if you
Look,
guys
let's just Jesse needs to go in a bit. Let me bring up the plaque idea, because I do love this idea so much, and this is the kind of thing we could do with this kind of project. The idea was when the NX-01 was getting put together. What was the specific name of the ship? There was the CVX-330, the first Earth ship. You remember, which was in the one episode of Enterprise. They have this plaque for it's the Enterprise plaque, and they physically take that plaque and put it on the NX-01, and then fast forward in TOS, that plaque is on the Enterprise, and Kirk has takes it from the Enterprise before it gets decommissioned in Star Trek 3. So that plaque is now on the Enterprise A for Star Trek in Star Trek 4 and 6, and whatever we do with 5. And that plaque is, you get the idea, the Enterprise plaque going forward through the generations. I like that concept.
Yeah, that could be a lot of fun.
What would be kind of? No, never mind.
Don't say it. Just get it out. Just get it out.
I always like the idea of objects that circle around in time travel stories.
Oh God, that's horrible.
So what if we, the temporal Cold War, we get in the Enterprise J and all that shit, and that plaque somehow goes back to that original ship, and it's just the same plaque going all the way through. And
just get it. And that's why they keep having to refurbishing it each time it passes to the timeline, because it's like, why is it so old? It's only oh well, whatever.
Yeah, I'm
there
sure
we go. Polish it up.
I'm sure there's some way that that would eventually would deteriorate through the timeline and everything, and it would break all of the.
And then reality just kind of goes.
Yeah, but I always like that sort of stuff where there's just an object that weirdly just circles through.
I don't
know.
Yeah.
But that's terrifying. Well, I mean, we could do that. I don't know. We could workshop that around.
We don't have to use that. I always liked it. They did it in Lost way back in the day, and it always sort of captured.
Oh God, yeah, I forgot about that.
It was whatever that thing was with Locke or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, hold So talking about the motion picture, I'm trying to multitask and I suck at that. Talking about the motion picture specifically, so we were talking how we would like it to begin. So the first piece to it is we're going to keep some of the aspects and we're not going to keep some of the others. And one of the things was we were going to still kill off the science officer, not Spock, but the actual science officer. And I think we were discussing a way to bring in some of the aspects that we wanted to beforehand in this universe. So for those who weren't there for the very first episode when we were discussing this, you guys should have been. But the idea is that transporters to work and work effectively with no one getting killed has to have 2 points with transporter pads. That's the safest way to do it. So if you transport from one pad to another, then you're generally going to be safe. Anytime you don't have a transporter pad, people are going to die. Now, when we get to TNG, Voyager, and others, you can use the enhancers, but it's still always a risk. It only lowers the amount of people that die. And so one of the things we're going to do is we're still going to have the transporter accident, but what's going to happen is Enterprise is having an issue with one of its sensors, kind of like what they did beforehand, that block, that piece of plastic that for whatever reason wasn't working. Starfleet isn't aware of it and transports the science officer over. For whatever reason, there's a miscommunication, and of course you have Kirk and Decker that rush up, that try to stop it, tell them to reverse it, and unfortunately they can't. So we're going to kill him off that way. This establishes for us the actual fact that the transporters don't work like that. They even have a big deal talking about it. I don't think it should be anyone's fault necessarily, but it's a good way to establish that transporters don't work or still don't work without another transporter pad.
Sorry, go ahead, Joseph.
No, go.
I was just going to say, I'm completely in agreement with this. I've been wanting to bring down the power level of the transporters a lot. I think the two-pad idea is a great way to do that. And I think that's a great way to establish the two-pad idea for people who don't see Enterprise or TOS or are not sure or new to the concept or whatever. And it's just like, huh! And yeah, like other lore says, I like the idea. It's just a fluke. And it necessarily didn't even have to kill that guy. It's just, I'm thinking really high fatality rates without another pad, like in the 70, 80, 90% range,
Yeah.
Like, you don't do it. It's the whole point. They don't do that unless they really, 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 really are willing to take that risk. And that's why, right? It also, one other very minor thing, I wanted to mention this earlier, but I think mentioning this on camera is a better thing. I like the idea that McCoy really does refuse to transport over. It always irritated me just a little bit that he's like, I'm not beaming over. And Kirk's like, I'll go tell him to use the damn transport. I'll order him if I have to. And that happens approximately 4 minutes after the previous guy got gelatinized.
Yeah, that's
by
the thing that always bugged me. It's
So yeah, no, let's go ahead and have him come over with the shuttle.
Yeah, and then so that, I think that establishes it. Now, for those watching the motion picture, we're not changing a ton. We're changing it, but it's not going to be like in depth like some of the others, I think. Ultimately, when it comes to, was there anything else before we get to V'ger that you guys wanted to impact, or does things generally go the same for that?
Jesse, you looked like you were going to say something earlier.
Oh, I was just asking, is the science officer that dies in the motion picture in that pad, is that Zahn? Is that supposed to be Zahn? I always forget. Because I know the actor who played Zahn was on that ship. Like, the actor who played John was on the that space station, but I also think that specific person who died was on. I just wonder if we ever wanted to bring up Zahn as a thing, or just a dude that dies.
I don't know.
I always found Zahn to be, I mean, if you look at some of the old scripts for Phase 2, he was actually a mildly intriguing character. In sort of like his setup as a counterpoint to Spock, where everyone, like, Spock started to learn emotions and Zahn never does, and everyone sort of has to get used to him. Which is kind of interesting. But yeah, we don't have to use it. If
we're going to do that, and I know this is risky, but what I would want to do is I would want to have something along the lines of Spock either being intermittently absent or completely absent from season 3 of TOS and replaced with Zahn, right?
Yeah.
And thus then Zahn dies in TMP and is then further once again replaced by Spock. That's how I would probably structure that.
When did the one with Genesis, when did that took place after the original series. I know it did in real life.
Wrath of
in
Khan?
the canon. Yeah, Wrath of Khan. When did that one?
That's after
7 years.
7 years after, because there's a whole second 5-year mission between the motion picture and the Wrath of Khan, which is people always forget.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking if you wanted to introduce him, but the timeline wouldn't match up then, obviously. Well, yeah, and they couldn't, I guess, because of the things they have there. So that makes sense. Okay, I was thinking maybe you could explain him away for that. That's why you explain him away in season 3 not being there or being intermittent. But
there is another option here. We could not kill Zahn and have Zahn be relevant in some other thing. The problem is I'm not sure really a good place to put him.
We don't have to use him. I just sort of thought he was always a mildly intriguing character I never actually got a chance to exist. Really.
Yeah, it's just like, all right, here it is. Phase 2's torpedoed.
Yep. I mean, like I said,
there goes Decker, there goes Ilya, there goes Zahn. Yep, they're all on the checklist.
I mean, I have a book that has all the old stories from Phase 2, like the 13 written stories. And the script from the original motion picture like the pilot version of the motion picture that was originally going to be Phase 2. And Zahn was actually kind of intriguing. I liked him, so it was just he was the only really super interesting one. Like Decker was basically just Riker.
I mean, killing Zahn here doesn't mean he can't be in the original series when we get to that.
I'm liking that idea more the more I'm thinking that in my head of putting him into TOS.
It makes
and using him there.
It makes his death kind of cheap, but more impactful, I guess.
I was gonna say it matters more, but as you say, we are effectively, killing off a character for impact.
Yeah, that would be they would just die like a punk. It's like okay, so this guy who was integral in season 3, we kill him in the first 10 minutes, and he's dead because of a transporter accident. And he died in a horrible way. What was there? What was
really
there?
Dramatically.
What was there didn't live long. He died in a horrific, horrible way.
Thankfully, because they actually say that in the episode.
So I really there wouldn't be no backlash from that. I'm sure fans would not take that very poorly. I feel
okay. You bring up
we restructure in the fact that people would hate Zahn in season.
Oh, there you go. We'll make him a total jackass. We'll just make him like that prototypical early Enterprise Vulcan. Right?
He's
exactly.
He's that science. He's Discovery season 2. That science officer that had it coming. The one that had
the
one that had the Cation roommate. You don't know that there was a science officer. He's like a bigoted idiot, and he's talking about how smart he is, and he talks about his Cation roommate right before he gets killed.
He's literally mansplaining to Michael Burnham as he
wow.
And the way he says it, it's horribly done. I do not like the writing of it. It's funny, but I don't like the writing of it because he's like, and I have a Cation roommate, and the way it sounds, it almost comes off like I have an Asian roommate. That's what I thought he said to begin with. And then
it's okay. I'm not racist. I have a Cation roommate.
Yeah, and the Cation. So here's the thing. It's just horrible. I don't like it, but it's funny because he says, "Look, I'm really smart because I could outthink my Cation roommate, and if you change that, outthink my Asian roommate." Just makes him more bigoted, and it's horrible.
I didn't hate. I mean, it's just one of those he only is in the show for all of 15 minutes, and it's clearly from the second he steps on board, it's oh, you're gonna die horribly in just a little bit, aren't you?
Yeah, you could tell.
Give him a little bit more than the typical red shirt. He is just red shirted, but at least they're he has a character. His character is awful, and you're supposed to want him to die.
Yeah,
but he's better than just random red shirt who just gets killed off.
Exactly. So anyway, sorry, I was just saying that's way off. Okay, so do we want to create this character to kill him horrifically?
Hang on. I'm actually going to interrupt you again because we need to talk about writing philosophy really quick. And I mean this sincerely. Hear me out, okay? So we are in agreement that having someone die here is a great way to physically and immediately show off what the transporters are about, right?
Right. And the stakes for using them and the stakes when they decide to use them without another transporter pad. Because the audience is going to see, so when we do it in TOS or TNG or whatever, they can go back. This is what they're signing up for.
So yeah, I agree completely. And so that's the thing. We have to kill someone, right? We have two choices. Make them significant or make them a red shirt. Do you see why I'm bringing up the writing philosophy thing here?
Yeah.
Because at that point, it's well, what do we want to do? Kill off some random nobody cares about, which is what a red shirt is. Or do we kill off someone significant so that we're not doing the red shirt thing?
I was thinking about this the other day too, with like the red shirt conundrum, because I feel like I recently watched Skin of Evil where they just redshirted Tasha, and it's like I was trying to think, it's like, well, how do you do that well, and what's the difference? In the way that I feel like a red shirt could be done well to a significant character, the one example I would give is basically anything Joss Whedon does, but Wash specifically in Serenity.
Yeah, I'm with that.
That's basically a red shirt death just to show he gets killed off insignificantly just to show stakes, but it is done to give you stakes in that moment.
Yeah, if we're gonna kill someone off, I think it should be, like that. I think it should be significant. So I'd redshirt him. Honestly,
If I can, now hang on, because I got another idea here. One of the things that is, in my opinion, the easiest way to avoid a red shirt death is to have the death has some significance other than situation serious, right?
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea of Zahn's absence being relevant and present the entire movie.
Well, that would also work well because Decker just sort of takes over the science station and is like, all right, I'll just do sciencey stuff until Spock shows up. But what if Spock shows up a little bit later, like he doesn't show up before they get to V'ger? That he shows up while they're first initially dealing with V'ger, and he actually like saves the ship at a critical moment. It's like, oh, V'ger's about to destroy the ship. I don't know what to do because we don't have a science officer. We had to leave without Zahn. And then Spock shows up, saves the day.
No, yeah, I like that, and I do like, obviously have some of the crew. You remember the episode where Data dies? Most toys. I would love a moment where someone's like, Zahn, if you could give me and then everyone just kind of freezes awkwardly. As everyone turns and he's looking at Decker, and it's like, Mr. Decker, I don't want to directly copy Most Toys, but something like that.
Well, I like that too, because then that would even play into Kirk's resentment of Decker throughout the movie. He he came to like Zahn. He's like, Zahn, can you? And he goes over, oh, Mr. Decker, and it's sort of like this, Decker feels even more out of place.
Exactly.
On the bridge.
So that's what I'm thinking. We make it Zahn, we make it significant, and we go ahead and make Zahn an actual character in TOS3. So there's our bullet points right there.
Cool. And then Spock saves the day.
And then Spock swoops in and is like, so a couple broad changes before we get to V'ger. First of all, let's shrink it a little.
So it's not like
honestly the 90 AU or whatever stupid number. They actually mentioned multiple AU numbers for how big the stupid thing is in the movie, which disagree with each other.
Isn't it supposed to be like several solar systems big?
Yeah, or it is merely the size of the width of Pluto's orbit is one of the possibilities.
Right.
Depending on which line of dialogue you're talking to. By the way, for those of you who haven't been studying space lately, that is gargantuan. That is so huge.
So it's like an orbit of Earth, and like everything else in the solar system just gets shoved out of the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, so let's shrink Void. In fact, honestly, let's just bring it down to the ship. In my opinion. Let's just bring it down to the ship, the one that's in the STO, right? The one that we see right at the end.
You mean V'ger? Oh, the long ship. Okay, I
thought you meant as big. Just bring it down to the size of the ship. It's still a big ship. It's still terrifying. Just get rid of the cloud that's the size of a solar system or three.
I thought, by the way, Sydney, thanks for supporting the channel. I thought you meant like the probe. Like just the probe just shows up.
Oh, no.
That would be terrifying too in a way, though. Just a small probe just destroying everything in its way.
That would be horrifying. But at that point, that would also be Nomad again. Right. And we need to just eject the Nomad episode anyways. The other broad change that I was going to make is... I want to do something with Spock to help his intro better. I like Spock's arc in this episode a lot, actually. Or in this, I actually called it an episode. In this movie, a lot. But I do think we could do something to smooth out his intro. Because it's just, he's on Vulcan, and he's getting a medal, but he actually fails. But he senses V'ger, and so he goes to Enterprise.
And no one else in the galaxy senses V'ger.
Yeah, what is that?
And what I love that is he is so suspect. All you have to do is change the music, and it looks like V'ger would be controlling him. He is so suspect. If you change the music and maybe just tinted it just a little bit more. But yeah, I don't. I mean, what would you do with that though specifically? Was it what we were discussing?
Admittedly, I don't have an idea off the top of my head. I'll be honest about that. Oh yeah, one really minor thing. Let's just codify that Decker is Decker's son. I mean that was the original intent anyways, so let's just solidify that.
That Decker
Commodore Decker from Doomsday Machine.
Yeah, is
the guy who went crazy and was like, we got to destroy the machine at any cost. That was actually originally supposed to be his thing, and it was supposed to be a subplot that Decker, the captain, has been fighting the bias in Starfleet against that his whole career.
Right. Well, and I mean, given what they thought, they could also think that maybe he's going to become mad. Maybe, and that could have been, you even use that, like, that's what Kirk used. That could make an issue between them too.
Ooh,
like
that.
Decker comes up and he's like, "This is crazy. Why would you do that?" Decker goes to the Admiral, and he learns one of the arguments that Kirk used is like, "This guy could go mad. Did you see what happened with Commodore? I mean,
I was there.
Yeah. That's what happened." And and I mean, it's the '60s, so I mean, that this madness, it runs in the family. It's in the blood,
That's how that works.
It's space madness.
Yeah, that's what he says. Just as long as we don't remake The Changeling at all with a happy ending, says Indie Tiger.
I don't remember that episode. Which one was that one?
The Changeling?
If I do anything on this computer,
Is that the one where the Changeling's on the Defiant?
No, it's an episode of TOS. I remember the name.
Okay.
I can't remember the episode right now.
I think they also use it in DS9 too. But yeah,
Might have just been called Changeling. And
we'll go back to that for sure.
Was that Nomad? Was that the Nomad episode? Oh, well, there you go.
So,
we need to do we have to change Changeling, especially if TMP exists, because they're the same freaking story.
Yeah,
that's even acknowledged by the writers.
That's just something we can put in. Just Nomad's gone. So beyond that,
let's erase Uhura's memory again in this movie.
Let's what?
Let's just erase Uhura's memory again in this movie.
just because we can.
It's okay. She can get full Starfleet training in a week.
Yeah.
Well, they are advanced humans, so.
Oh my god.
Moving on, we're moving on. So I think Nomad, not Nomad. Oh my god, I think V'ger destroying the Klingons is probably a. I would give I don't know. I don't like just killing off the Klingons just to do it. I would almost, and this may sound crazy, but I'd almost want the Klingons to maybe be there to support the Federation in a way. I know that sounds off, but either that or I don't know.
No, I like that.
So that it starts building towards undiscovered country, like, oh, this is the first time.
Well, and it goes along with the honor thing, because you just throw them in there just to destroy them to show that it's pretty powerful or whatever. But what I would probably do is that it's coming at the station. The station is sending out an SOS. The Klingons respond, and we have them respond with, don't worry, Starfleet, we'll actually take care of this because we're always good and you guys suck anyway. Whatever, bolstering. But they would respond because it's the honorable thing to do, to respond to the station that can't defend itself. Hopefully you don't have a conniption fit directly in front of us while we're doing it. You okay? Because I saw you...
I failed a trick. I'm playing Metroid.
Oh, okay. I thought it was something. I thought it was something I said. So it's like that's why I brought it up.
Klingons.
Klingons being honorable, but no, they respond. The station and the Klingons are destroyed, and that can be the end of the Klingon arc. Just give them a little bit more than let's just show up and let's try to blow this thing up. Just give them. I
also like it because it'll play a little bit off of this is something different than what we saw them throughout the original series.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and we can and then it can be brought up, as you said, in like the undiscovered country. It's like, and maybe that could be the inspiration. We could even write that into it. Like they show up and that's the inspiration. Remember when these Klingons showed up and Starfleet, Spock and Kirk can have that count because Kirk's like, kill them. They're not worth anything. And Spock can say, well, you remember what happened with V'ger. There are some that are honorable. And he can't really respond negatively in that way. So I would do that. And then, honestly, I don't have much until we get to Elia. However, I never say her name right.
I think it's Ilia.
That's Ilea.
Ilea, you're right. It is Ilea.
Yeah. So, unless you guys
Sexiest Delta in Starfleet. I like something Sofa Perdido said in my chat as well. The idea that in addition to the Klingons responding because we're better than you, also they have a brain, right? They recognize that this is a common foe, and they're not stupid enough to fight in a burning house,
right?
Which is again something we've already established by this point. So, just kind of furthering that idea.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because I think
it's just a line change from your idea. Otherwise, I'm totally down with the idea of the Klingons just deciding to help out the station and failing,
right?
Because they got to fail.
Yep. And you just see, and it would just be, you see these Klingons come up. First thing that happens is the Klingon ships are obliterated, and then slowly the station is too. And that would just be just horrific. Because apparently in the original series they have cameras literally everywhere, including on the bridge of the Klingon vessels. I don't know if you guys remember that, but they're looking at the screen in the bridge, and I'm like, wow.
Look, you just don't. I mean, you've seen not the cage. You've seen the menagerie, right? Like they have amazing camera footage.
Yeah.
Although they call it out.
I just also love the balance of terror, where there's like someone with a crane and then dolly, and apparently the Romulan ship.
I know.
Like,
it's like, okay, sure. We'll just go with that. Why not?
Yeah, it's like, how are we getting this footage from inside the Romulan ship? What?
Don't worry about it. You're thinking too much. This is sci-fi. You're not supposed to think about sci-fi.
All right. So, do you guys have anything else you want to add till we get to Ilea?
Just little stuff. Just little stuff that doesn't really matter.
Well, I mean, we can. We're writing it, right? So what? Just do it. Just the little stuff. Just go bullet point it fast.
All right. So bullet point number 1: we need to make Tonru the probe that's Nomad fused with, and then Kirk cannot logic it, but then it sees human perfection. I'm sorry. I'm trying to read your chat. It's really tiny.
I was going to read that too after you got done.
Okay.
You did my joke. You did my joke. No, I was going to let you do that. That's why I said when you bullet pointed it, and then I was going to be like, and then I was going to add it because I'm looking for my phone.
Well.
I'm terrible.
One thing we forgot to address that we brought up, but what are we going to do with Spock?
We need his intro. We need his intro.
Reason for why he's coming. Well, we know he's gonna. I would have the Enterprise reach V'ger, like scanning V'ger. There's actually, if you look at the Phase 2 script, there's actually a lot of stuff that happens before they enter V'ger. Like they scan it and it like messes with their ship. It scans everything. Maybe the ship goes down or powers down. That's when Spock comes in. And is like, let me just twiddle around on the science station for a second.
Here's an idea. And I don't know how you guys feel about this.
Hate it.
We have V'ger. The first time we're introduced to V'ger, I would let's remove the station for a second. Just hear me out. Remove the station for a second. V'ger shows up to Vulcan, and that's where we have the Klingon. Maybe the Klingons come up to save Vulcan. We can still have that piece, and then V'ger takes Spock. Now, why I'm not sure, but V'ger takes Spock. And then when the Enterprise gets to V'ger, it transports Spock back. Transports Spock without a transporter pad back with no issues. And then Spock can still act the way he is. That was the first attempt by V'ger to try to communicate. It decided to choose Spock. Now, I get it. It's kind of contrived. Out of all the billions in the universe, Spock's the one it got. But this is the 60s, so we can do that. It chooses Spock and puts Spock on the Enterprise. That explains how Spock has its connection with him, and it explains V'ger's first attempt and frustration.
So, I'm sorry, Jesse, you go first.
Well, I'm just like trying to think of like what that would mean, because I don't hate that on its face, but then it's sort of like, why would V'ger? Because the whole thing with V'ger, right, is that it doesn't read organic life as life. It only sees like ships and things as life. So it's like, why would it grab Spock specifically? So
it could either be so the one of the changes is,
and not make him into a probe either.
Well, no, but that's my point. So here's the first attempt. So we have a little bit of change we want to talk about when it gets to Leah. We'll get to that in a second. But I think its first attempt, maybe it doesn't understand this infestation, and maybe it's trying to communicate with Spock. Maybe it's just trying to understand what these organics, what was it called in that TNG episode? The organic life forms of mostly water, or whatever.
Ugly sacks.
Yeah,
of mostly water.
Ugly sacks of mostly water. Trying to figure it out. Couldn't figure it out. Tells Spock, hey, you need to go tell them what we want and get off, stop being an infestation. Spock doesn't understand because Spock's, can't communicate with it, and send him back. And then Ilea would be the second attempt.
So, okay. I have some refinements to that if you want to hear them. Because your idea is stupid and terrible and I hate it.
Well, of course it is.
No, actually, I like the direction. Here's my thought. Spock's on the station.
Yeah.
He's not actually on Vulcan undergoing the oh god, I can't remember what it's called. Kolinar, thank you, because they mentioned Enterprise as well. He's not doing that. Either he's already done it or he's already failed at it. One of the two. I like the already failed at it idea better. And he's still being pretty rigid, right? He's still being fairly Enterprise Vulcan, for lack of a better way to put it. Mm-hmm. In his mind, in his just aloofness and rudeness and coldness. This also, however, Spock's a genius. By Vulcan standards, Spock is a genius. I like the idea that Spock is the one who is on the station, paying attention to this thing, and picks out the patterns in its operations. Is able to look at it from such a coldly detached perspective that nobody else on the station has. That he's like, well, hang on, it's doing this because this, and it's doing this because this. Effectively, he kind of reverse engineers the code, to put it simply. And so he reaches out to V'ger. V'ger's like, well, hang on, something's reaching out to me. That might be it. That might be the creator. Hang on. That then leads to your idea of V'ger. God damn it, V'ger doing really hard jumps while talking here. Of V'ger trying to communicate with Spock, failing miserably, as you say. Whoops, and I screwed up that jump too. And then effectively just ejecting Spock, or Spock escapes, whichever sounds better there. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go. Keep on.
I was just saying
You guys can sing together, but you can't talk together.
That is how that works. That is how that works.
I get to choose. It's going to be, it's going to be Runner, and then it's going to be Jed. Runner, go.
Cool.
I was just going to say that Spock basically beelines for the Enterprise as a direct result of his interactions with V'ger. That's it.
All right.
That's why he's going to the ship.
Sorry.
Now Jessie gets to go.
Apologies. Sorry, I apologize. No, I just wanted to interject because I like that, because I think that ties really well into where Spock has to go through this movie as well, because I like the idea of him having failed the Kolinar, but still is like, oh, I kind of want to live up to it. Oh, my phone's going off, one sec. Still trying to live up to the ideal of that, of like, oh, I'm going to be emotionally closed off. I'm going to try and push myself away from other people. So he's like got that chip on his shoulder. And then when V'ger reaches out, reaches out to him specifically because his mind on that station is the most mechanical. Oh, that is super sweet.
Yeah, she made that for me.
His mind on that station is the most mechanical type mind at that point. It's like, oh, you felt most like a machine, and that's why I reached out to you. And so that sort of ties into Spock being more closed off and less human, for lack of a better word, in the opening stages of this movie. And then he has to learn to open up, as does V'ger. So his sort of arc matches V'ger's arc.
To love again. He has to learn to love again. Kirk is the only one that
basically
can do it. So we can have that.
My biggest change is I want Kirk and Spock to have sex on the sickbay floor.
Well, that makes
I'm
that
not sure
scene.
we could actually put that in.
It makes that scene work where there looks like they're almost about to kiss. So
that scene, they literally are about to like just make out right there.
Yep, that is the truth. But no, yeah, I agree completely. And also, I need to stop hitting this spike. I love the idea that he's always identified as Vulcan, right? And this sounds so stupid. I like the idea that across TOS season 1 and 2, because he'll be mostly ejected from 3, but across season 1 and 2, we have the character arc of Spock pushing to be more Vulcan against his dual nature. And then throughout the movies, we have him pushing towards his actual nature of being both.
Yep.
And that being his inverse, like he does this,
So
and then when he comes back in TNG, he's like reconciling that between Vulcans and Romulans, sort of teaching that lesson between the two.
And so this actually goes into your idea, I think, that you were talking about beforehand. But before that, Ranter Matt says, so since Leah's vow of celibacy is on record, what was she and Decker doing when they were together, sitting in a meadow somewhere, a la Twilight? They were actually playing Tiddlywinks, and she's really good at it. Or she wasn't in Starfleet. The other piece of that, so Spock gets back, and he for whatever reason, he says they probed me or they're trying to communicate with me. It didn't work. I think I know how we can communicate with them, but it'll require us to use some technology. We'll have to attach some technology to one of us to interact. And so then you have maybe Decker says he's going to do it. Kirk wants to do it. Decker's like, no, I was the first captain, so I'm going to do it. And then Leah says, no, that doesn't make any sense. We can't have command crew at your level do it. I'll do it. And this is completely, by the way, Runner's the one that came up with this. I'm running with it.
You're throwing me under the bus here. I see how this works.
So they hook this technology up to her, and then they hook this technology up to her. Spock is able to send out the code again, or gives the code to her, and she goes and does the code that he did, and then she's beamed over. And that way, and this will fit in at the end. So just stick with us, Jesse. Just trust, my friend. But yeah, that's how
I'll never trust you. Don't worry.
Well, dude, you're not wrong. You're not the first. You're not the first woman who doesn't trust. Anyway, so that's her. That has connotations. So anyway,
good job.
Yeah, I got Trek Central talking Nazis, and you guys. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, they beam her over, and it either doesn't work or it partially works. They're not all the way there, I think. And so when they interact, it just like almost fries her mind to a degree. And it's the Aaliyah we see when she gets back.
Yeah, it's an incomplete interface was the idea.
Yeah.
Also, it's really important to me that that they actually put cybernetics in her.
Yeah.
So that's how the connection is physically made. None of this beaming into light because of ascension into another plane of existence kind of stuff. No, there's actual technology involved, and that's how.
Well, I guess that also ties into another question. If we do want to have like cybernetics inside of hers, are we going to connect it to the Borg then? Because there would clearly.
I mean, Roddenberry's idea for that has always been just Roddenberry, and honestly, no, let's not do that.
Okay.
God damn it! There, not you guys.
You gonna be okay?
He's shooting me with his blue eyeball fires. Blue eye fires?
For the moment,
they do look like blue eye fires. That's right.
For the moment, with TMP, we're going to bring up what we have available, and so I think that we keep with that. We keep the cybernetics in there. So she's going around the ship trying to figure out what's going on, and then ultimately, and I think this is where we can give V'ger some emotion. So V'ger finally gets emotion and understands what emotion is and becomes that child because the interface was incomplete. So it got a taste of the emotions. It knows what the emotions are, but it doesn't know how to deal with them. It doesn't know what it's doing. And Leah just can't do it. She's fried. And so we still have the temper tantrum. We still have it pulling it in. We still have we have it exactly where we have it exactly where it wants us, because I thought that was excellent. And it's about to destroy it. It's about to destroy Earth. And what the reason why is it's like, look, you're not giving me what I want, and if I can't have it, nobody can. And so it says it's going to destroy Earth and then every planet that it can, unless it finds the creator. And that's what it says. So it's not just Earth, because honestly, when you think about it, if all this thing did was destroy Earth, it's the capital planet, but the Federation's going to be okay. They have Vulcan, they have Andoria, they have a lot of other options. I mean,
we destroyed Vulcan in the Kelvinverse.
Yeah, but no, it says, you know what? I'm just going to destroy everything. If I can't have it, I'm just going to obliterate this entire universe. Mm-hmm. And then at that point, and again, I feel like I'm going really quick, but I don't see anything else in there.
Hang on, uniforms need to be Wrath uniforms just from the beginning. I think we're all in agreement there.
Wrath of Khan.
The movie uniforms need to be in this movie. I will. That is a line in the sand, sir. Even the actors. The whole reason that they changed the movies was the uniforms was because the actors hated the TMP uniforms so much.
Really? They are terrible. Don't get me wrong.
They are terrible, and apparently they're very uncomfortable too.
Yeah, I could see that.
But what about the space buckles that allow you to live in space?
No. This is a line in sand. That's what this is.
My only push against that is: are we still doing like another 5-year mission between Motion Picture and Wrath of Khan, or is it kind of just going right into Wrath of Khan?
My instinct is to not bother.
Speaking of which, would also necessitate a slight changing of the ending, because the ending kind of goes like, oh, Kirk is back to being a captain. He figured out where his place was, and then in Wrath of Khan, he's an admiral again.
Yeah.
So that if we decide to eject the second 5-year mission that we never ever see, then we also need to kind of maybe tinker with where Kirk ends in this movie.
See, the funny thing is, I agree with you completely, and the thought I had was contrary to Wrath, and it would require rewriting Wrath a bit to make it fit. I like the idea that Kirk sucks at being a captain in this movie. No, I'm serious. Like the movie does that a little bit. Like at the beginning, he is so clearly out of his element, and it's demonstrated multiple times, and then he starts being awesome again, and that's the end of that. But I like the idea that he effectively never gets out of being a bad captain in TMP. So he stays Admiral Kirk, but he's still Kirk. He's still someone who can think on his feet and think around a situation. He comes up with the cybernetic link idea. Just he's the one who actually plays chicken. I love him playing chicken with V'ger. I'd love for that to stay. Stuff like that.
I actually, what I think might make this work for a small arc for him is the reason he's kind of a bad captain in this movie is because he's a little outdated. Like Decker knows the updates to the ship. He just knows more information about how things are run today.
Right.
And so his instincts as a captain are not bad. His just like awareness of like the abilities of the Enterprise.
Well, and that's what happened with the wormhole.
Forget about the wormhole.
Real
so
talk.
Stupid. I hate it.
When I rewatched
ties...
that for the rumination, I forgot that scene even existed until I rewatched that for the rumination. I was like, wait, what is this? I don't even remember this scene.
Yeah.
What the hell?
If you go into Wrath, if we keep that arc of like the whole thing where like his instincts as a captain are good, he's just sort of outdated in terms of just his awareness of like how the politics of the era, the technology of the era. So he's a little out of his element there in terms of on the ground knowledge. That will feed into his arc in Wrath of Khan because the whole thing in Wrath of Khan is like, I'm feeling a bit old. And then he'll like sort of learn how to be a better captain and sort of get his handle on the current situation and realize that his instincts are good, even if he is wearing a bit thin, sort of thing.
We could also go ahead. No, I didn't mean to.
I was just going to agree with her because relics, TNG relics. It's the same type of thing. He is so out of date on the technical side of things that he actually causes a commotion in engineering, which is actually admittedly badly written, but you get the idea of what they were going for. Yeah. Same exact concept. Kirk is so out of date on how to actually do it, but he still. Let me use a direct parallel. I actually have a friend of mine who is really good at COBOL programming. Now, granted, COBOL programming is still used to this day, but at one point he was trying to shift over to C++, which is a very different structure, right? The thing was, he was still a good programmer. He still knew exactly what he's doing and how to string things. He just didn't know the actual code, so he had to hand it off to someone else and say, "Here, turn this into code." But it was still good code. Hence, this could also make a good reason why Kirk, in this episode, God, I keep calling it episode. We could have him relying. I know. That's why I keep screwing it up. We could write him relying on the crew more than usual, even. Like he's like, okay, I want to do X. How do we do X? And then someone pipes up, well, Captain, all we have to do is It's like, okay, yes, let's do it. Just little tidbits throughout the movie that indicate that he is he knows what he's doing. He just doesn't know how to make it happen.
Do you know the person that would be good for that? Sulu. Start building his arc towards being a captain.
Yeah, I like that idea.
I mean, it's also possible to have him. Also possible to have him emotionally. Maybe they know. Maybe he either thinks that. Maybe they either know that Maybe they either know that V'ger took Spock, or they think Spock's dead, which could also emotionally compromise him because he thinks Spock is dead.
Yeah, that could play in. That could also play into his like I need to get there, kind of get out of my way, Decker. I need to do this. That also like adds more of a emotional thing for him taking over the ship from Decker as opposed to him just being a dick, being like, I want the Enterprise. Meh, meh, meh.
I'm going to risk. I'm going to get. They took Spock from me. I'm dealing with this.
Right. Because it's family. They took family. They took his lover. Yeah. So they did that, and then maybe. And another thing we could do, again, having to rebuild his confidence, is that Decker says no to Aaliyah going over there, and Kirk overrides him and says it's the only way, and then ultimately that doesn't end out well for her, so that could also have an impact to him.
Can I suggest something crazy, but it might. I'm just thinking about this. Like, I don't hate Aaliyah, but she is sort of like a very like let's just introduce her. What does Uhura do after this point in the movies? Not much, right? Besides the fan dance. Could we shift the romance to be between Uhura and Decker, so there's a little bit more tied to something, and we actually give Uhura something to do for once, and it would cause her to be gone for the rest of the movies. But like, what else does she do? You don't have to go with it.
So you want to kill off? You want to kill off Uhura? Is what you're saying?
Well, no, hang on, because the real question there is: do we want to give Uhura more in the movies, or do we want to kill her off here? That's the question.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this would go
That's
back
a good
to that,
question.
This would go back to that thing where it's an actual important, meaningful death versus what happened with Zahn. I mean, what? Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, one way or another, we're giving Uhura more to do in the show. Period.
Yes.
That needs to happen. That was so. She herself, Nichelle Nichols, almost quit and was actually convinced not to buy Martin Luther King Jr. because she was so upset at how little she had to do in that show. We need to give her stuff to do.
Yeah,
we need
I 100% agree. I could also there's an element to me like the like killing off the one like black woman in the motion picture, but it would give her like a nicer arc than just sort of just being there, because I don't think she really does much of anything besides just being a like utility. Like
in TMP, she does absolutely nothing.
Yeah. Does she do anything else to any of the other movies?
In 4, she has a scene, and I'm struggling to remember it. I know she has a scene in 4, and she has a couple scenes in 6. She's actually pretty good in 6.
5,
and we don't talk about that. But
I think that's the most significant thing she does. Yeah, I can't remember what she does in 4 either.
Everyone except for Sulu does something in 4, and I can't remember what she does in 4. Whatever.
She makes them. She points out. I don't know. I don't think it was 4, but she points out that the Klingon bird of prey has anomalies, gas that you can track.
But that's the thing. So she's just there as like a piece of utilities. Like she basically.
I know. That's what I was saying.
Yeah. So it's like I would rather give her something more to do here if we're just not going to use her much throughout the rest of the movies anyway.
So hang on, I like that someone in chat, who was that? Savicom, who's a great viewer of mine, she's awesome. She suggests make Uhura make TMP hinge on Uhura. And I don't know, and I kind of like that idea. And if we I was thinking we need to make Uhura more relevant, but I realized we've already done that. If we turn Uhura into Ilya, you know what I mean, then we have turned her into arguably the main character of the film.
Right.
And I do like bringing Uhura to prevalence there, especially since we're restructuring it, rather than Ilya dying and being replaced by the mechanical duplicate, it's Uhura getting, implants put into her so we can try to communicate with this thing. And she is now our only hope and pipeline for communicating with this super powerful probe that's going to destroy half these planets. So,
and we care a hell of a lot more about her than we do Ilya at this point.
Well, and you know what we could do? I'm not sure how much I like this idea, but we could kind of go Kelvin timeline a little bit. And write kind of a romance between Uhura and Spock that never happened or that ended or whatever. And so Spock knows or talks about if they're going to interact. When V'ger interacts with Spock, it finds out about Uhura, and maybe, and this is, again, we don't have to do this, but maybe it requests to have Uhura sent over, and Spock's like, this is that's why she goes over. The only way to interact is to have these implants put into you. And then the V'ger's like, send over Uhura. That's who we want. Or we're just going to blow up everything. Or, something like that. I don't know. And then, again, that kind of ties into the relationship with Spock. We go a little bit Kelvin timeline. Then we got a 3-way, because that's what you got to do. I know you hate it, but it's in every sci-fi, 60s sci-fi, good sir runner.
I don't actually know what you're referencing at this exact moment in time.
Romance.
Listen, I'm fine with good romance.
Romance in your sci-fi.
It's just usually not good. That's the problem. Although,
especially in Star Trek, Yeah, I can name.
There's like 3.
Yeah, B'Elanna and Tom.
Yeah, B'Elanna and Tom's probably always my number 1 pick there. O'Brien and Keiko dance around there, but they're good.
They're not in the slightest. No, what the hell?
Oh, I love them. I just did my
very
Deep
real marriage. That's what they.
Why would you ever want a toxic relation? Okay, continue.
I watched Deep Space Nine just recently, and I'm like actually watching it, and I'm like. Actually, O'Brien and Keiko have a really good relationship. I actually think it's really one of the better done, like realistic relationships on TV.
Let me say, it reminds me a lot of the marriage I was in. I was constantly being yelled at. Things were being used against me. She didn't like that I had friends. Alien beings were possessing her and threatening to kill everyone.
God, I don't even know why you would put up with that, man.
She started. No, this is marriage. This is great. She starts a school and gets in a fight with local religious leaders, ending up in the explosion of said school. I completely agree. What 10 out of 10? That's how marriages should be.
I don't know. So this is a whole tangent, but I also I've seen her like when O'Brien like is tortured and left in that like mind prison for however many years, even though it's only 10 seconds or whatever. Like she's very understanding. It's like, look, I get it. I totally understand. She's like, there's just so many moments throughout the whole thing where I like feel like they support each other really well, and she's very understanding of O'Brien. And yeah, she pushes back, but it's kind of when O'Brien's kind of being neglectful himself.
So no, I agree. It's perfect. There's a criminal that's been there for like 50 years that is certainly unhinged that she allows around her 5-year-old daughter. Yeah, she's like the perfect. Again, her name should be Jennifer. That's all I'm saying. No, just kidding. I don't like Keiko.
That's totally fair. I like it. But that's
another
a whole
conversation.
It's a whole other conversation off of what we're talking about.
We could debate that at another point.
You'll notice I'm not even joining in on this one. I'm just sitting here listening. I'm like, yep. I'm playing Metroid, thinking about TMP.
Anyway, back to TMP.
At least we can all agree.
To finish my thought that I never got to finish because we got off on the relationship thing because someone had to make a jab at me there. Reloaded.
I wasn't making a jab. I was just saying you might not like it because it's romance. And I mean, I've seen O'Brien and Keiko. I know why it doesn't work in sci-fi. I'm right there with you.
So here's... I kind of like the idea of Uhura ending up with Spock.
I kind of like it too. That's one of the things that I really kind of I don't like it in Into Darkness, but I like it in 09 and beyond.
That's what I was going to say because in Into Darkness they were stupid with it.
Yeah.
They were just like, hey, we're going to do all the typical things that you would expect from a dumb rom-com. Because why not?
I did like the fight kind of though. It's like you're in a fight with Spock. She's like, yeah. It's like, what's that like? Kirk's like, what's that like? How do you like? That was a good point.
That was a good line.
Yeah, that was good. I also like the line he says, ears burning. I thought that was a good one too. A bit racist, but funny. It's okay. Racism is okay when it's funny. You heard it here first.
I remember there is an episode of TOS where the writers and Nichelle Nichols actually thought they were going to put those two together. It's God, it's I don't remember the name of the episode. It's the one where they're being mind controlled by the Greeks, the Sons of Plato, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
It's the first interracial kiss.
Yeah, latest episode.
And that was actually supposed to be Spock, and the reasoning behind the scene. There was actually a lot of fighting about that scene, by the way. Holy crap! I think that's one of my longer videos is on that episode. So look forward to that.
Well, I also like it because the very first scene, if you go back, the very first scene ever aired of Spock is between Spock and Uhura in the man trap, where she's chastising him for being too emotionless and not caring about Kirk. And so I kind of like that it comes full circle that they have a romance together in that. So
that is correct. But anyway, sorry. The point is that one of the original reasons why they were thinking of having that be Spock instead was they were thinking of maybe pushing that side of romantic angle. And that was shot down for various reasons. And also William Shatner said, and this is a quote, if anyone's going to kiss Nichelle Nichols, it's me.
It sounds like
you can look that up. I am not making that up.
There's zero doubt in my mind that is exactly what he said. I have zero doubt.
I think there'd probably be multiple anyway. So I think that does bring it together. That's why V'ger's so interested, maybe. And I don't know. I think there still has to be. We have to get Decker. Decker has to be the one ultimately.
Yeah, I was thinking about Decker because I love the idea of replacing Ilya with Uhura. I'm okay with having the Spock romance in there and building that in season 1 and 2. It could also add some antagonism of her against Zahn. Excuse me. While we're on the subject, because she's obviously not in favor of the guy who replaced her boyfriend. But what do we do with Decker? We structured things, but there's a hole there.
There could be. It could be a triangle. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, we do it as a triangle, and it's like she meets Decker. Like Spock leaves in season 3, and she's kind of like she has a thing against Zahn because replaced her boyfriend, but also like she's a little bit upset at Spock throughout season 3 because he basically breaks up with her. He's like, "Look, I'm gonna go off and do my own thing." And it's like, "Oh, you could have stayed with me." So she like in the interim between season 3 and the motion picture, she starts dating Decker. Like she has a thing with him, and so there's that sort of like three-way thing if you want to.
And then at the end, we have it between who's going to become one with V'ger. Is it Spock or Decker? Because ultimately, both kind of want a way to be with.
Yeah, now that I see this though, the only issue with this though is then it kind of screws up the thing with Decker being with her, because then we would be saying as writers that like the ultimate romance was Uhura and Decker. as opposed to Uhura and Spock.
That's actually a good point. That's a good point.
But I
like
mean,
one of those unintentional consequences of how we're structuring that.
Yeah.
Well, or we could turn it Well, I mean, we could go dark with it. That Decker always wanted to be with her regardless. He forces himself. And so now Spock can't because Decker does something that requires that he be it.
I got this. I have a way to make this work. So we talked about how we want Spock's arc throughout the movies to be he opens up more and becomes more emotional. What if the reason that Uhura decides not to end up with him is like, look, you just never were able to be emotionally available to me, and Decker actually is emotionally available to me. He's actually opened up and he's become like a person that I really love. He's able to give me what you can't. And that kind of hurts Spock, but he understands the truth of it. And that's sort of what starts his arc to wanting to be a little bit more open with his emotions going through the rest of the movies. Because he lost Uhura, and she kind of says that that he needed to open up more.
Yeah, and that could be the start, because at the end you have the argument between Spock and Decker, or however we get there. Spock steps back because he realizes, at least at that moment, he can't be what Uhura would want. He couldn't be with Uhura either way.
And by the way, he does that out of love.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And that's how he does it. He steps back and he says, you know what? Even though I wasn't there in a way that you always needed me to be, even though I wanted to be, I just didn't know how. And now I still can't be. I mean, I'm better, but I'm still not what you need. Decker is what you would need. And so,
and that like instigates him to start opening up more throughout the rest of the films. I like that. I think that's a good sort of poke of his arc. So it sort of puts a cap to his I'm becoming more emotionless arc, and then begins his arc towards becoming sort of the in between the two.
I'm debating something. Sildeer in my chat mentioned why not just erase Decker. The problem is we need Decker. We need someone who becomes the full connection, like Uhura, formerly known as Ilya. Ilea, excuse me. God damn her name. She's the partial connection. We need a character who will become fully connected with V'ger to effectively form this mutual whatever you want to call it, which is what calls V'ger off, and V'ger stops being an opponent at that point. It stops being an enemy.
And also there's the drama with Kirk too that Decker.
But I think Decker works on multiple reasons. Look, so we have Decker. We have him connected to Commodore Decker. He wants to be the best that he can be in Starfleet. He never can because he's in the shadow of Commodore Decker. At the beginning, it proves it. It's just, unfortunately, regardless of what he wants, he's never going to be what he needs in Starfleet. But he could be what he wants to be in V'ger. He could be what he wants to be in V'ger with Uhura. So that completes that. So I think we change his arc a little bit so that it matches up, and then it all works out. So because of his family, he just can't be who he wants in Starfleet, and he gets everything he ever wanted.
Yeah. And then it plays off well with the Spock Uhura stuff. Yeah, I like this a lot, actually. So fuck Ilea.
Yeah, she's gone. She's completely erased from reality.
We'll still keep that one line where
Uhura walks in and says, "Don't worry, Uhura walks in.
Yeah.
My vow of celibacy is on record."
Yeah, she says it to Kirk specifically.
He says it to Kirk, and Kirk just looks at her like, "I mean, You realize they forced us that time, right? It didn't count." I'm not saying you're unattractive. It's just And
then she's like, "Yeah, there was force there, sir." And then she walks on. I don't know. It's just. Anyway, what were you about to say? We're not going to.
What I was going to say, is what I'm debating now.
What I was about to say,
I'm failing at a job. That's what I'm doing. Do we introduce Decker before TNP like we're doing with Son?
If we do, we could have him in the Doomsday Machine, and like he's like part of that whole thing with like, don't go and don't kill yourself, Decker. Dad, it's fine. Yeah, that's the whole thing.
I don't think I would use him there. Like, I get where you're going with that. But I think it would be, if we were going to do that route, I'd have him show up after Doomsday Machine.
If we're gonna, I would build the seeds of him not working in Starfleet if we were going to do that.
No, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Like, hear me out for a second. Imagine, the Enterprise, even in the TOS era, that's the golden ship, right? Everyone wants the posting to that ship. And we actually see this in TOS. I can't believe I never knew this until I did the analysis on it. Kirk is really persnickety about who he allows on his ship, right?
Right.
He will be able to call out the names of people that are ensigns off the top of his head, because he's that I guess controlling is probably the word I want here, about his crew, right? So Decker, that is to say our Captain or Lieutenant or whatever he is at this point in time, he, like right after Doomsday Device, not, or maybe 2 episodes later, very soon after that, he is like, hey, I've gotten this promotion to the Enterprise, and now I'm being posted here. And Kirk is the one who initially is like, and Kirk starts to try and deflate him, then not allow him to do dangerous missions, not allow him to go into any particularly strenuous circumstances, and just kind of push him down a little bit, Whoops, I missed someone. And that's the beginning of that. And Decker does something good. Now here's the kind of the way I would do this. Kirk, I would want Kirk to be complicit in the problem, but not completely. A little more gray than just being the bad guy. I like the idea that Kirk is someone who puts in his report that Lieutenant Decker is a fine man who deserves a chance, and maybe like an addendum, just don't put him in like too dangerous of a situation, something like that. And that's actually in the episode on his report. And then, as Reloaded was saying, we established a couple more times after that, and Decker has just mentioned it in the background as someone who is being shuffled around on the star bases, aka the place where your career goes to die, right?
Yeah, and I mean, we could even, if we wanted to, it may be overkill, but in TMP we just add how a part of the issue between Decker and Kirk is that Kirk fought him. Like, Decker did everything he could to get command of the Enterprise. He went above and beyond. He did more than most anyone would. And when he was about to get the Enterprise, Kirk tried to stop it, but couldn't, because he went above and beyond, and that creates yet another issue between the two of them.
I do like that. And I love the tension between the two. I love this is my ship. No, this is my ship. And I love the idea, and this is very Star Trek too. I love the idea that Decker just pushes himself so hard and so far that he makes it, right? Like, he does actually succeed in becoming captain of the Enterprise, which is like the golden spot. I'm going here. You ever see Gattaca, the movie?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not to spoil for anybody who hasn't seen it, but I'm thinking that is Decker. Like, he's just so committed that he actually pushes himself in a way that succeeds, that he makes it.
Another piece to that too. I don't know.
And then Kirk shows up and takes the ship from him.
Yeah, and he uses that. And it could be a part of that was he could think, whether it's true or not, Kirk just used this as a reason to bump him out. There's an emergency, the first emergency, and the only reason in Decker's mind that he does this is because he's using it as an excuse to yet again get in his way. And another thing, and I don't know, this could be a little cheesy or a little tropish, but maybe at the end, either have Kirk outright say it, or have something where Kirk's like, throughout the entire episode, it goes back to Decker and Sulu saying, that's not how the ship works. The ship works like this. Kind of like the wormhole. And throughout, Decker is showing him that he should be the captain of this ship. And then at the end, Kirk either says it, or we somehow portray it where Kirk's like, you were right. You were ready to command the Enterprise long before you actually got the Enterprise. Maybe have like a finality to their arc.
My idea is a lot quieter than that. I'm sure you'll hate it. I like the idea that as either literally to him, probably to his face would probably work best, as Decker is sacrificing himself to be the final cybernetic component. Kirk is like, it's like, hey, Decker, and Decker's like, what? And Kirk just straight up salutes him.
Yeah.
Quietly, but very solemnly, and just that acknowledgement.
I like that. I like that. I like the subtlety of that.
Or maybe, nice. Another thing to do with that, I don't know, maybe you just have it where him done, or maybe they decide Decker talks to them and talks them into it on the ship before they go down. And Kirk, he's about to leave. You have the crew there, or at least the bridge crew, and he stops. He says stop. He says, Decker, hold a second. And then he salutes and has all the others salute. He says, Captain leaving the ship, or something like that.
Ooh, yeah.
Basically pulling a disco season 2 with Saru.
Yeah, it says, he says, Captain disembarking, and then he salutes, and then all the others salute as he turns to leave the ship. or something like that. Where the crew...
Yeah, I like that because then it sort of creates a nice little moment, but it's still it's less underplayed than the one salute at the end, but it is also still kind of a quieter moment.
Yeah, it's a subtle thing, and he gets recognized as the captain of the Enterprise by the crew as he leaves, which could be. And then, of course, the ending would be ultimately V'ger has
leaves.
Yeah, well, no, V'ger determined how to do what they wanted to do. But not mess it up. So they messed it up with Uhura. They put the implants in Uhura, fried her to a degree. They recognize V'ger studies the technology, says, "Hey, this works," and then it because of Uhura, it now requests Decker, and so Decker has the implants done by V'ger, and then it actually leaves, and we see the where it goes, or we at least see there's some kind of... It's not just Captain Kirk being like, well, hopefully Starfleet will figure this one out. See you guys, peace.
Well, actually, I there's something from the comic books that deals with post V'ger that I actually really like. That would mean that we don't actually have to explain it in this movie, but it could pay off later on. Which in the comics, when V'ger, Decker / Ilea in actual canon becomes this transcendent being. Turns out that it goes and runs into Q. And Q's like, that's an interesting thing. You're kind of weird. What are you? Oh, you're humans? I should go check those human things sometime soon because they seem like they're ascending pretty quickly. So it was basically like the ascension of the Decker Ilea thing gets the interest of the Q.
So
I kind of like that, but
I think there's a way we could actually still use that. It would be in a much different way. We'll discuss that a little bit offline with you. But the idea we had right now, and the thing I think we'd go with, because I think you'd be on board once we talk to you offline about it, is that they still go their own way. Like the ship just actually leaves. And there's actually a finality that it either maybe it creates the wormhole, maybe they go to warp in the system and a wormhole is created because that makes a lot of sense.
Totally does. That's how wormholes work.
That's why you can't do it in the actual system. And we saw that in DS9 when they decided to go to warp to stop the changeling from blowing up the sun. It created a mini wormhole that he was able to go.
By the way, you can go to warp in the system in the new canon. Just saying.
That's just the wormholes don't exist.
That's just it. That's it. You can go to warp in system. The end.
It's never explained though. Is it even ever explained? Maybe it was. We watched it.
Jessie, to my knowledge, no. I mean, okay. I mean, if you really want to get into it, obviously they go to warp in system a lot. My personal favorite example is how many times they go to warp immediately in orbit of a planet. Which, if it's going to be bad, that's going to be as bad as bad gets, right?
Yeah, because that's where
they do that repeatedly and consistently. There's no reason for that limitation. It's just like every now and again the writers are like, oh wait, hang on. We need them to go slow, and we don't understand that impulse drives, it would literally take months to get out of a system. So we're going to go ahead and have them not go to warp in system just this once. Idiots. Anyway, sorry. You can warp in system. We're done. Moving on.
So, I mean, is that okay? So we either leave it again with the Q thing, or
so hang on. At the very end,
now Jessie hates me.
Jessie is, well, I mean, she's just, she's
that was before.
Didn't have to do anything. Oh yeah, I hated you before we started this thing.
No, the thing I'm stumbling into is the actual construction of the ending. Like V'ger leaves, and we have the send off for Decker. I like the send off for Decker. We can do several methods of that, but either way, we have something. What I'm running into is I'm trying to think of how to actually end the scene, like visually, like how it actually looks and how it operates. And I'm running into a wall because I'm not sure how to do that without doing the typical pat, terrible, wah, wah, let's have a joke and all laugh and be happy ending, which is what they do in TMB, by the way.
I mean, the place to end it is with McCoy talking about the life and everything. So it's like we've created something new. We don't know what it's going to be. It's gone to return, because my point was I think they should return to the at least make it seem like they're returning to the species that came from that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And
it's going home.
Yeah, it's going home, and we've created this new life. It's going home. It's a baby. We don't know what we've created, but hopefully we created something that's going to appreciate appreciate what it is or appreciate life, and then probably contact Starfleet because that would be an important piece, and then that's where we end. Because let's not leave second star on the right.
You need. I also feel like there needs to be some sort of cap moment between, like capstone moment between Kirk and Spock, because we just created this whole arc with like Spock lets Uhura go out of love, but he realizes he can never be what she wants to be, and now we're setting Spock off in this arc to be more emotional, and the person that is now closest to Spock that exists besides Uhura is now Kirk. And so I like there being kind of a smaller moment between Kirk, like goes to comfort Spock and maybe sort of like touches upon briefly the themes of the film in some way.
I have to admit, even though this is borrowing completely correct, even this is borrowing completely from Wrath of Khan, I've always liked the structure of the end of Wrath of Khan, which is we have the climax, right? Okay, we did that. Then we have, the next thing we have is the private moment. So in this equivalence, that would be exactly what you're talking about, Kirk and Spock. And I agree completely. A Kirk and Spock moment would be great there. And then we have the denouement on the bridge with the actual crew and all of them talking about it. You know, I feel young was the thing in Wrath. But in this case, I would want there to be something like that. And I am not a good enough writer to do that off the top of my head. Well, but you get the idea.
I would have Spock. I mean, the way I'd end it is I'd have Spock say something like, "It's strange, we dated for." I'm sorry, Jesse, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're fine. I was vamped for a minute, but
I was just gonna say, Spock say something. It's you know, like it's weird or it's illogical or it doesn't make sense. I was with her for 2 years, the 2 seasons.
He says that I was with her for 2 seasons.
2 seasons, which is 2 years, as you know, in our line says that. I was with her for years. And yet I've never felt closer or loved her more and been in so much pain than I am right now. Or something like that, you know?
The way I would phrase that, I like that idea a lot. The specific words I would use would be, I've never been happier for her.
And yet been sad. I've never been... Yeah, because it's just a
No.
bittersweet...
Don't have him say he's been sad. Have him show it.
Well, yeah.
We got Nimoy, technically, acting this. So just have him... I've never been more happy. And
which is great because it's like the last thing is he's feeling an emotion after spending so long actually not having any emotions or trying so hard to not have them, and so he's just very conflicted about it.
And we can even in the series we can build times when they had like real happiness, like it was a good relationship for what it could be, and you know even bring up some of those times, like you know I remember when we were together and Kirk watched, and yet even with that, I've never been, you know, happier for her.
Also, speaking of which, the romance planet where the spores are dumb. It's actually a good episode, but the spores are really dumb. I would, while we're here, I just want to make a note that the romance Spock has there should be with Uhura.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because the whole, forgive me for going into this just really briefly, but that's actually a really well done episode. And one of the best ways it was done was that Spock mentions how he is allowed to love her, that he is it's okay for him to express the feelings he already has for scientist lady whose name I don't even remember. So switch that to Uhura and you get the idea that he has always had something there for her. It's just he's never allowed himself, thanks to his pride, because he's a very prideful person, no judgment, to actually express that. And it's like I can love you, you know, that kind of a thing. Yeah. And so maybe a callback to that.
And also, we could basically take all the scenes with Nurse Chapel and Spock. We'd have to adjust them a little bit. But basically, just take all those scenes with Nurse Chapel and Spock and just give them to Uhura throughout the original series.
And then we can start the next arc for him, like Kirk, you know, being there, and then leans over and says, "You want to cuddle?" And then he just looks over, and then you know the ending, and then the music comes.
And it's just tantric sex, nothing but tantric.
No. First off, this is Trek, sir. We're going to be subtle about this.
Sorry. Nothing but raunchy sex.
I'm sorry. Did you just say you're going to be subtle about the sexiness?
That's what I'm saying. No, what I'm saying is that's what happened. Kirk just looks over. No, I mean, so Kirk's right next, Spock's right there, and then they just look at each other and they lean forward. But before they even kiss, it just goes. And, and it does the Next Generation for some reason. We hear that music.
Well, that's the Next Generation theme song, isn't the motion picture.
That is true.
Yeah, did you know German Trekkie actually? I'm sorry. What were you about to say?
No, go ahead.
German Trekkie did a thing where they actually had a different song for The Next Generation, but they decided to go with and combine it with the original series. Maybe you said that too, Renner, but I remember it.
I will never say anything. I can't remember his name. There's a Vulcan specialist. He's actually human, but he's a Vulcan specialist doctor in TOS. What's up?
Sorry, I do have to apologize. I do have to head out in about 5-10 minutes because I got to go prepare for the other.
I'll just say really quick, that should be Chapel. There you go. Boom, that's it.
Sorry.
She's the Vulcan specialist. Mabenga, that's him. Mabenga.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it. All right, Jesse, this is your floor. You got 5 minutes.
Are we done?
Oh, I have nothing specific. So I was just saying. I'm just saying I have to go in about 5-10 minutes.
Well, I think that's the TMP thing anyway. I think we busted that out.
That is it. Yeah, we've kind of done it.
This is going to be the easiest one. I mean, we got others coming down, but this will be the easiest one for that. So
we've ejected all of our terrible ideas. Sorry.
Kept it in. All right, anything you guys want to add? I guess we can let it be there.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
The last thing I wanted to comment on, and this is something that several people in chats said, as well as I think Jesse brought this up. I'm okay with there being vague connectors between the movies, but we do at some point have to decide how strongly we want to connect 1 through 6.
I don't think I'm fine with this one kind of being its own. If we're staying with like the intention, I mean, honestly, 2, 3, 4, and 6 all form a very cohesive arc that you can watch separately, but they do somewhat tie into each other. I think the only like major plot point that ties into all of them is Kirk's son's David's death.
Well, and what I was thinking, and
it's like explicitly called out.
What I was thinking, and let's not give anything away because we've been talking about. But what I was thinking, and I think it works really well, is that the movies ultimately are great connectors and tie-ins for the series. So what we see in a movie will have major implications in the various series. And I think kind of what we've mapped out kind of works with that.
Agreed.
So the movies, they have their own arcs and they fit together too, but really what they do is they really supplement or possibly enhance the series themselves. So someone will watch like TMP with what we have, and then they can go and dig down into like Voyager or the original series and see all the connections for it. So the movies really just serve to really inspire the series themselves, I think, which is what I think Trekkies do anyway.
Now, admittedly, one last thing on that point. I'm curious of your thoughts specifically here as well, Jesse, and then you'd probably have to go.
Yeah.
I was originally thinking to myself, I like the idea that all of the major game-changing stuff happens in the movies, but I changed my mind. I don't like that idea at all. I think we should be completely willing to change the status quo in show or movie. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's fine.
What do you mean?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, finish up, Jesse.
Oh, I was just going to say, I agree. I mean, it also kind of depends on, like, if we're thinking timeline of when these things were created. I mean, technically, Star Trek 6 is a game changer in that the Klingons become an ally.
Yeah.
But that was already established prior in Next Generation by that point when it came out. So it's like, do we count it as like a game changer in our timeline of when we release it, or are we like doing it in the show technically? You know what I mean? Does that make any sense?
No, it makes perfect sense. Actually, that is a very good question, something we'll have to decide. But I was already thinking in a direction, and it didn't even occur to me to bring it up, because the way I was mapping this out was we were going to whenever I someday have infinite power and can actually make this happen, I was going to do this linearly, which means the first Star Trek show in the Star Trek rewrite would be Enterprise, and then TOS, and then the movies, and all of the movies, by the way, and then TNG, all the movies up to 6, excuse me, and then TNG, and that was always what I was thinking, but I suppose we haven't actually decided that yet. So
yeah, it's like, are we keeping release order, or are we keeping? Are we going to do chronological?
Well,
I prefer chronological.
That does change the storytelling.
Yeah, the way I thought we were going to do, or we were going to discuss, was the movies, because that's what we had.
Well, we can discuss it in that order. It just depends on what the. how our storytelling, like we can discuss it either way, but our storytelling will be affected by when things would release theoretically.
Sure, but I mean the movies, then Enterprise, then like you said, and then that's the way I thought we were going to discuss it too. That seemed like the most logical.
I agree with discussing it that way because that's anchor discussion. For
Yeah.
those of you not aware, anchor discussion is when you come up with something first that is a major anchor point for all the other stories. Not anchor discussion, I mean anchor writing, excuse me. And then you write out of from there. You know you're going to write other stuff, but you want the big things that are really going to change things first.
Right.
And the movies seem like a good place to establish stuff. Like, for example, the fact that we're bringing Zahn in season 3 and ejecting Spock in season 3, and we've got the Uhura and Spock relationship. You see what I mean then? I mean, you guys obviously get it, but for viewers at home, this is what I mean by anchor writing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's a part of me that I always kind of like out of chronological storytelling, because then you do get kind of fun stuff like the fact that 6 was going to have to, like 6 probably came out of the fact, it's like, well, we do know the Klingons and the humans are, like we have these 2 points and then we connect the points. Like we know Kirk's kind of a racist against Klingons and we know we have to make the Klingons be an ally at some point. So let's connect those 2 points and make a movie. Which I kind of like. So there's an element of me that likes telling non-chronological, like releasing non-chronologically. Our discussion can be in whatever order, but releasing non-chronologically kind of makes.
Here's my potential compromise. Why don't we do it? We can discuss it in whatever order. We think of it as in release order linearly, but then we have the option to do non-chronological stuff later with Discovery and Picard. And those Discovery and Picard will come out after Nemesis, basically.
Yeah. All right, that works.
Yeah.
Cool. I do have to get running, so
Right.
Adios.
Peace. I'm
you
about
both.
to get killed by pirates for saying waving, so I hope you appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Well, and beyond that, I don't think we really have much more, unless there's anything you wanted to add.
No, I think we covered all the big things, like the uniform. There's a lot of littler changes, but all those are what I usually call polishing past stuff, like the uniforms and the bridge and the. So one idea that was suggested by Federation Builder, which I did want to mention specifically for TMP, was the idea that the Constitution refit, the first Constitution refit, not the second one, actually happens in TOS season 3. And given that we're already doing a lot of stuff with season 3 and restructuring it, I think that would work pretty well.
Yeah.
And so there's a little bit of the Constitution, I don't know, alpha or whatever we want to call it, in TOS. And then that helps to explain why it gets shuffled around again and updated again. Also, we need to, this is thinking forward a little bit, but we do, I think, need to either decide if we're going to have the Enterprise scuttled in 3, in Search for Spock, or if we're going to eject that entirely. Which I'm fine with ejecting that entirely.
Why would we need to not have it scuttled? I guess what was the reasoning? Walk me through.
Oh, I mean, that's up to you. We can still have it scuttled. That's fine. Although, if I'm being completely honest, the world builder in me has always hated that. All right, so we spent time and money and effort and work in completely refurbishing, which is much harder than making a new ship from scratch. This ship, so it'll be the new up-to-date Constitution. And you know what? It's an old ship. Let's get rid of it. It's part of the old era. Let's bring in the Excelsiors and not use Reliance for the next 80 years. I mean, it never worked, right, in my head. It never made sense that they just randomly decide to scuttle the Enterprise for no explained reason other than it be old, yo.
Okay.
It's like saying we should stop using Windows XP. I mean, I'm sorry. Do you know how many major installations and government and companies still use XP because it's still a good OS and it still works just fine for quite a bit of work? Just saying. Anyways, so it never made sense to me. That's the nitpick. It always bothered me that it was just a thing they did to add a layer of antagonizement to Admiral I'm the bad guy in Star Trek 3. I don't like Star Trek 3 that much, by the way, for those of you not aware. I feel like it's a little bit too simplistic.
Well, it's something we can think about and consider. I just have to think about what we're going to do if we're not going to scuttle it, though. That's
the reason I bring that up is because, there we go. The reason I think we're having a miscommunication. I just realized that because the way you phrased that. What I mean is I would get rid of Starfleet scuttling it. I'm fine with the Enterprise being destroyed in 3. Okay. My complaint is that Starfleet is like, we're just gonna mothball it.
Oh yeah,
That's my complaint.
Okay. Yeah, especially if they don't do that to all the ships. I agree.
Yeah, it's just why? But the reason I was bringing it up with relation to TMP is if we were going to keep or destroy the Enterprise, we could start laying seeds for Y in 1 and 2. That's one. That's all. That's the only reason I'm bringing it up. But if we're not having them retire, then there's need for that, so we're good.
Yeah, I mean, we just need to write into TNG if we're going to continue to use it. By TNG, I probably wouldn't, just because I think it doesn't look the greatest. I think it's very archaic design, personally, and so I would either have it relegated to barely being used, or I would start having it sheltered out. But that may be because I grew up when TNG.
I know Federation Builder. I'm just not bothering to fix it.
That may be because I grew up with TNG, and so I never really grew up with the Enterprise.
Well, I think if we were just to talk about that very briefly, and then we really are going to shut off, and then my people will stop complaining about the fact that I haven't adjusted the camera yet. I like the idea that they do still have those ships around in the same manner of like, what's the name of that British warship? It's not the Hood. There's a really old British warship around the World War II era that was old and out of date and just kind of crap, but it's okay because they used it mostly for, to bring people on to recruit, like oh, you want to join the Navy?
Right.
Here, check this ship out, and you could actually peruse it, and they could do training missions on it. And that if we were to do anything, at all with the Constitutions, the Reliance, and the Oberths in the TNG era, that's what I would do right there. Yeah, the Victory is a sailing ship. I'm thinking of something. It might be the Hood. The Hood was sunk by the Bismarck, though. Anyway,
yeah, I mean, yeah. I don't hate that. Yeah, I mean, it's just something to think about, and we can go more into it. Unless you just want to keep them, I just don't like. The design's
I'm fine with
for
ejecting them. I really am.
The design is fine for the original series. I just don't think it works when you finally get to TNG. But again, TNG is what I grew up with. And so I like those designs. Those designs seem good for that era. But that's what I grew up with, so maybe that's why I think that.
I will freely admit that the Constitution A is one of my favorite ship designs in Trek. But that's purely cosmetic. And again, I don't actually care that much.
Yeah.
It makes plenty of sense for them to push the old ships back to the point. Because look at it from a world-building perspective. Ignore our bias. Ignore what we think of. Let's just think of it from an in-universe perspective. It makes the most sense. What makes most sense? That they would take these very large, very in-depth ships and just destroy them. They would spend the ridiculous amount of time and resources and effort in updating a constitution to have, the new warp core and the new dilithium matrix and the new everything, absolutely everything from word go to the point where it's not even a constitution ship anymore. Or they would relegate them to something non-essential. Now, the reason I like that last option too is it also gives us a tool if we ever want to have some kind of desperate last-minute kind of thing. Borg, best of both worlds, excuse me, where the only things they can throw at them are old constitutions.
Well, the only other thing I'd do too is I'd probably do maybe like what they did in TNG, where it's a status symbol, because like the Excelsiors, right? You saw the Excelsiors when you had admirals, and the only real reason to do that is if it's kind of like a status symbol type thing. And so maybe we could have one or two show up ever so often if there's an admiral. Generally, it would be the Excelsiors or something
I
like that.
like that idea, actually.
And they
have those be I'm sorry. I don't mean flagship as in the leader of a fleet. I mean flagship as in this is the ship that the admirals get on to wave the flag on.
Yeah, and they even say that, like, you could bring that up, like have Wesley or whatever character. It's like, that's an Excelsior. I've only ever seen those like in class, and then someone points that out and says, yeah, that's Admiral whatever, Nichayevs or whoever. They generally wave the flag when they want to do something special, and they pull out this, and they'd be like, oh, why? And talk about the Enterprise. It's like, oh yeah, the Enterprise class or whatever. Just and then yeah. So I mean, that's what I would do. I would.
I do like that idea. And so that does mean, however, I think we're committed to the idea that Starfleet is not going to mothball the Enterprise in 3.
The only vessel to ever be mothballed in that way is to what I can remember at least is that class of ships. Every other one is always reused during TNG, DS9.
For real life reasons, of course, but yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, so I mean, there'd be no reason technically for them to do that. So yeah, so I don't think it makes sense for Starfleet to do that.
Cool. We can still kill it. We'll get to there when we get there.
Yeah, and again, in TNG and stuff, it's just as you like a last minute thing where they're throwing whatever they can at it, or it's for a status symbol or something else. Like if they go to mining station X, it's like, oh look, they have whatever they have
an old Reliant, for
Yeah.
example. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, oh, again, you do that thing. Oh, I've never really seen one of those up close, and so. In fact, that could be a part of like season 1. Remember when they had the Miranda class there? Mm-hmm. It's like, oh look, that's an old Miranda class. Wow, you don't see those that much. And then it was someone bring up, it's like, well, yeah, there's a lot of them. It's just we're explorers. We don't generally. They're usually not this far out. They stay close within Federation borders.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's a good idea. So cool.
So what I'm thinking is we need to cut off the stream and then talk about our super secret plans to actually have the Romulans create control, and that's what invents the Q.
And it was connected to the Tal Shiars. Oh,
yep. It was always the Tal Shiar.
Do you know about that in Picard though?
Actually, I don't know.
The Tal Shiar have a Tal Shiar. The Tal Shiar is controlled by...
no, I do know about that. Yeah, the second Tal Shiar, the stupider Tal Shiar.
Yeah, that's
and I'm going to call it that because that's what it is. It's the stupider Tal Shiar.
But you've never seen it, so people can't get mad or anything.
I haven't watched Picard. This is a true statement. I have not watched Picard.
So. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. Next Saturday, we'll be doing next Sunday, we'll be doing the second movie. I'll be doing a live show streaming of it probably Tuesday, but I'm not completely sure. It will be at twitch.tv/Lore Reloaded. You must have a Prime membership to watch, but I'll be on there watching it, so you should definitely come hang out. Check Lore Runner out at lorerunner.com. If you're on Lore Runner's side, you probably know all this anyway. But
don't watch me. We're playing Earthbound tomorrow and Homeworld Cataclysm.
Yep, which you guys may not know. He has a ranking system, and Earthbound's ranked really high, and that's because it's a Nintendo product. You guys may not.
It's the only way. They pay me so much money, guys. So much money.
The only way that he has high stats for anything is if it's a Nintendo product.
Yep.
So.
Listen, I need to buy a third house. Okay.
Exactly. All right.